So I've noticed that there are a lot of like fashion tips and things like, tips for petites, for dressing a petite figure in sort of like the mainstream fashion kind of community, on YouTube. But I haven't really seen that many for, like alternative, creative, like queer fashion, for people who dress in a way that's kind of like non-mainstream. Now, I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fact that, obviously in mainstream culture, there were so many fashion rules. There's so many fashion, like I ignore so many of them, but there are, some of them are helpful. But the thing is, like, there are the fashion rules that sort of help you understand what suits you. But then there are also so many fashion rules in mainstream culture about what you should do and what you shouldn't do, that are just sort of based on, fairly narrow-minded opinions on how everybody should look. And obviously that way of dressing and that sort of mentality that, oh, well, you have to dress this way and you can't dress that way, is something that's definitely rejected by sort of fashion groups like, let's say, like the alternative culture that goes against, like mainstream fashion, that mainstream culture. It's definitely, they're definitely concepts that are rejected by like the alternative fashion world. So I'm sure that that's why there aren't very many videos about like, fashion tips and tips for petites or for dressing for your body shape in like the alt scene. But I still think that some of them can be helpful. So I've decided to do one. So I'm going to speak like from my own perspective, because I don't know whether you know, but I am like, obviously you can't see right now, because you can't sort of see my height, but I am 4'11", which is generally speaking, I think objectively not very tall. So I'm going to tell you about the things that suit me and that don't suit me from the perspective of, being the height that I am. Obviously, some of it might also link to like my body shape and other things as well. So not all of these, not all these tips are necessarily going to be relevant to you and are necessarily going to work. So bear that in mind. But I'll try to do it the best I can, and I'll try to choose things that I think might be relevant for you too. So the first tip is, if you do wear dresses and skirts, you might not. I don't always feel in the mood or feel comfortable wearing dresses and skirts, but if you do, or for the times when you do, then I found that for me, a no-no is wearing either a dress or a skirt that finishes on my calves. I find that just makes me look totally out of proportion. So what I have to do is either I have to wear it full length to the point where it's almost hitting the floor so that you don't see my legs, or I have to wear it probably either knee length or just above the knee. And that's how I sort of retain the proportions, really. Second tip, again, dresses and skirts. I find that what really suits me with my height is wearing something that flares. So something that's sort of fitted all the way down and flares out. But I've also found that I can, under no circumstances, wear something that's very long and flares. I can wear something that's very long and fitted. And I can wear something that is short and flared. But what I cannot do is wear something that is very long and very flared, because then I literally just look wider than I am tall. And again, this might be totally different for you, but this has definitely been my experience. So this is an example of a dress that I own, which I think, is hopefully a decent example of the first two tips there. So you can see that, I hope you can kind of see the length of it there. Yeah, you can just about. So you can kind of see the length of it. So this probably finishes, probably just below the knee for me. I haven't worn this in a long time. But yeah, finishes just below the knee. And in terms of being flared, you can see that it's fitted. It's fitted here. It's fitted on the torso. And then it does flare out and finishes probably just below the knee. So I don't know whether you've had this, but I've literally had this said to me so many times. I've had so many people say to me, oh, because you're short, you should keep to short little jackets, that finish here, like, below the waist, just above your hips, because, being petite, that's something that's going to suit you much better. You should stick to things that are short. And I find this incredibly perplexing because, although I do wear short jackets, I also wear jackets and coats that are really quite long. And I find that they work really well for me. Again, I found that, you know, if the coat does finish on my calves, then maybe it's not the best idea for me. But at the same time, we have to remember that with coats, length is different. So it's different with dresses and skirts, right? So a short dress or skirt is something that's probably a good bit above the knee, but that's not a short jacket. A short jacket is something that finishes just above the hips. So by the same token, a long coat might not necessarily, or at least a longer coat, something that's not a short jacket, is probably just something that finishes like just below the hips, which can still be above the knee. So it can still, you know, I find that some of them still suit me perfectly well. I have some that finish. I have one coat, my main coat, that's a red coat that does finish probably about knee length, but then I also have some coats and jackets that are actually much longer than that are probably, they wouldn't be floor length, but they would definitely be well below the knee. And then I think as well, I have some that are actually quite jagged. They have jagged lengths at the bottom, and I think that can help, because if something isn't cutting you off in a really deliberate way, then I think that can sort of give the impression that you have more height as well, because it's not sort of cutting you at a certain point. So this is one of the little jackets that I own, one of the short little jackets. It says here on the label that it's Rock Rebel. I know I bought it from EMP. I really adore this jacket because I really love the studs. It's actually incredibly heavy. Like, I know it's on a wooden coat hanger right now, but it's literally, my arm is killing me just from holding it. It's really heavy, and it's quite warm as well. It's quite warm, and I just love the studs on it. I think it's awesome. Oh, and the fact that it's two-tone and the fact that it's in two colours just makes it even more awesome. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, then you've probably seen this before, because I'm super obsessed with this. This is much less a coat and it's much more of a blazer. I bought it from Zara, but I'm showing you this because of the length. Oh, let's see if I can even go up high enough. Oh, yeah, just about. Not quite. But yeah, this is really quite long. Just give me a second. I'm going to hold it against me and try to remember what the actual length is. Yeah, this definitely goes well below the knee, and it probably is even, might be on my calves, perhaps a little bit lower, but I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like because it's open, you don't notice it so much, and I certainly feel like this suits me. So yeah, if anyone's ever told you that, you know, because you're petite, that you can only wear short little jackets, it's not necessarily true, it's really not. Something that I really love to wear is like tunics and tops over leggings. One thing that I've actually seen a lot of, and I can't even remember the name of it, but you definitely see it a lot in mainstream fashion, is where like little dresses that they sort of, they're often sleeveless, not always, but they're often sleeveless, and then they sort of go straight down. So it's a tunic that goes straight down, and it's not fitted, it just goes straight, and then it cuts, so it's often quite short. Yeah, I can't wear those. So yeah, I find that because of my height, if I'm going to wear a tunic or top over leggings, it tends to look much better on me if it's sort of fitted and then sort of loosens later on. But again, obviously that's not something that you need to stick to, and I think it depends a lot on how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your gender as well. Because I know that a lot of people, especially if they're very androgynous, you know, they don't necessarily want to wear something that's fitted. That's totally fine, but I'll show you the things that I wear anyway. So this particular tunic is from Jo Browns. I actually really like Jo Browns for tunics. I love them for colours, and I love the way that they contrast patterns as well. They have like different patterns and different material all in the one piece, which I just think is really fascinating. Now this top here that I have is Punk Rave. I pretty much always wear it over leggings. So yeah, this is something that is fairly fitted on me, but at the same time doesn't feel too feminine, and yeah, I love this. I've literally probably worn this to death at this stage, although it's still going really strong, thank God. I've not worn it out yet. But oh, I can't remember when I got this. I probably got this maybe when I was like 22, something like that, which would be what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 8. So it'd be like what, 5, 6 years ago now, something like that. And I've literally just worn it so much. I've gotten so much wear out of it. Was that number 4? I think that was tip 4. I don't know. I think I've forgotten to number them. I've like stopped numbering them there at some point, I think. There's something else that I want to add in here as well, so we can just call this an extra one, right? And I have mentioned this, I think, somewhere in one of my other videos when I talked about style rules and the ones that we should ignore. But as someone who's petite, like, they often tell you that, and again, I think a lot of this comes from like perspective, like a feminine perspective, and an expectation that you're going to want to dress in a way that's feminine, which obviously not everybody wants to do. But I feel like they suggest that you don't wear things like maybe ankle boots, and I do understand it to a certain extent, because I suppose if you wear something that's slightly higher, then it can actually cut you off and it can have a shortening effect. But, you know, I absolutely adore boots. I cannot put my style together, you know, on a constant basis without boots. Summer is a struggle because I love boots, so it's just something that I totally ignore. I think, though, some of it does, again, have to do with femininity, because they also tell you that, you know, you should wear something like a light sandal, or, you know, a very tall heel, as tall as possible, to try to give you more height. And I think, firstly, you know, although it's great to sort of be in proportion and to be able to create a style that's in proportion, there's no reason why we should necessarily try to give ourselves as much height as possible by, you know, using a really tall heel that we can't walk in. And again, you know, the emphasis on the femininity, because, you know, pretty tall heel lengthening the ankle and the leg. So I wear these. These are my new rocks. I absolutely adore them. I really, really love them, and they are totally awesome. I will admit that this is probably slightly off topic, but I would like to give you, you know, a slight close-up of these boots. See? Really awesome. And tip number 5 is, and I don't really think we need examples for this because it's much more general, and I don't think it's going to be hard to visualize it. But I find that for me, when I wear short sleeves, I find that they actually cut me off. So I'm seeing if we can sort of imagine it here. Like when I'm wearing something that's short sleeved, it does have a tendency, because it cuts off literally here, has a tendency to make me look broader than I actually am. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because being the body shape that I am, and again, depending on your body shape, that can actually be something that's quite helpful. And, you know, for me, I do wear puffed sleeves and various things that might actually make me a little bit broader on top. But I don't know, whatever it is, short sleeves do tend to cut me off a bit. So I find that what I tend to look best in is to wear something that either has no sleeves at all, that is sleeveless and fitted, or to wear long sleeves. And I do wear a lot of long sleeves, but again, obviously, if it's summer, not possible. So, you know, wearing something that's sleeveless works too. But again, I obviously do wear short sleeves as well. If I'm going for like a top, then I often choose things that are either sleeveless or long sleeved. But obviously with t-shirts and things, you know, I still wear t-shirts because everybody wears t-shirts. At least I think everybody wears t-shirts anyway. I think it would be hard to not wear any t-shirts. That could be quite difficult. And that's the end of the video. So yeah, if you are petite, then I hope that it maybe helps you in some way, or that it gave you some ideas at least, or that you could relate to some of the things, or that some of the tips or ideas were relevant for you. If you liked the video, then please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please hit the subscribe button below. And oh yeah, and if you hit the bell and you hit all notifications, then it should tell you every time that I put out a new video. I've probably said this already, but I'm saying it again just in case. And I'll also leave my Instagram handle down there as well, so that you can go and find me on Instagram if you want to. And I will see you in my next video.